The question is, this bill now be read a second time. I call the member for Maitland.
Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker. And wow, here we have this government, as usual, attempting to stifle debate, to act against the majority of people in our community who want to say, who want to have a say in our government, and those who want to join unions to have an industrial voice in the say of our democracy. And that is what is at the heart of this legislation. Our department, our opposition.
Order.
See, listen to them, Mr Speaker. They can't handle the truth.
Member for Maitland.
They want to have a go.
Just 1 moment, member for Maitland. Member for Maitland has the call.
Mr Temporary Speaker, those on that side of the House, they are the ones who really don't agree with what they're doing. They have proclaimed that New South Wales has got the strongest laws in the country on this topic. That's inconsistent with their own current attempts in the Court of Appeal to avoid the provisions of the law. But, Mr Temporary Speaker, my main concern today, and what I want to talk about, is those provisions relating to the caps on third-party campaigners and prohibiting of acting in concert, and we want to oppose them on this side. There are workers in my electorate, Mr Speaker, who have been completely shafted by this government. They have had their jobs taken away from them. These are government jobs. They have had cuts to their community by some 200 jobs. Why does this government want to gag those people who belong to unions who may want to have a third-party campaign on that in the next upcoming state election? Why are they being restricted in their rights to have a say about the terrible consequences for those workers, for the businesses, the small businesses in our community who are missing those some 200 pay packets that have been ripped out of Maitland, for example, in this long 8 years of this government? That is the problem. And we shouldn't be surprised that this is the approach that this government is taking, because we only have to remember back to yesterday in question time when we saw this government with their disgraceful vote against small businesses on the mid-north coast and to giving them... Don't do a point of order, Mr Minister, come on, seriously?
Remember that in question time.
You're seeking the call, Minister.
Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker. I would ask of you to consider this point, and that is to ask the good member opposite to actually speak to the leave of the bill. Small businesses on the Pacific Highway, to which she is alluding, has nothing to do with the Electoral Funding Bill 2018, and I would ask that you consider drawing her back to the leave of the legislation before the House.
I thank the Minister, and I'll uphold that point of order, that bring you back to the leave of the bill.
Mr Temporary Speaker, I am appalled by the Minister's comments there, because really what I am trying to make the point about is that, say those workers wanted to advocate against this government on the basis of what's happened to them, what's to say that they wouldn't be deemed to be a third-party campaigner in this state? Well, they could join together in a group to fight the government. What's to say that they can't do it? And some of them are union members, and so the Minister is again trying to gag them. And we know that this government doesn't want to hear about contractors, doesn't want to hear about small business people, doesn't want to hear about employees and their problems. They stand up here in question time day after day, talk about being the party of the workers, which is a complete lie, and all they want to do is stop anyone from having a say. They want to gag at every debate about improving rights for workers in this nation, in this place, and now they want to gag the community. Well, Mr Speaker, they don't have the right to do that. This goes to the central heart of democracy in our community. The Schott report had 50 recommendations. This government's ditched probably around 49 of them by not implementing them properly in this report. The only thing that they want, out of this is to actually get increases of model for fundraising. They reject Hanson, they say, but they won't reject the preferences, and they certainly want her model for fundraising by getting money out of this. They've picked pieces out of the shot. There's some 20 things that aren't even addressed in this bill. It is an absolute disgrace. And what we need to remember is that it is the union movement in this state that has advocated time and again for workers, to government, to the community, to protect rights of people. We only have to look at fantastic campaigns such as Your Rights at Work, and what this government has done at every time to shaft workers in this state. Look, these members, I can't believe they're interjecting on this. Don't they get people coming into their offices on a daily basis talking about what the impact of their changes to workers' compensation have done? Are they going to talk about that? Are they going to talk about how they have ripped money off injured workers through what they've done? And are they going to take away the rights of unions to do that? What about in Maitland, with the Maitland Hospital and having the huge campaign by Unions New South Wales, by the Nurses and Midwives Association, by the HSUA, by ASMOF? They're going to deny them the right to have the right to be able to advocate on that. It's just an absolute disgrace. This is a government that has lost touch with the reality. They want to shut their ears to any sound of dissent. They are more interested in spending their money on stadiums in Sydney, their $2.2 billion, and not actually addressing the issues that are bread and butter for the workers in this state, and they do not want to hear anyone who might be able to tell them any differently. Their gag clauses. Look at what happens in refuges in this state. If they talk about what's happened to them, yes, they lose their funding. This is a government that rips money out of those people who actually want to stand up for themselves and advocate and defend the important work they do.
I call the Minister on a point of order.
Mr Temporary Speaker, I would draw your attention to the fact that the good member opposite is now completely, blatantly disregarding your previous ruling, and that was to speak to the Leave the Bill. And if this continues, I might ask you to reflect on whether she should be asked to sit down, because this is getting ridiculous. Speak to the Leave of the Bill and behave like a good member should.
I call on the member for Maitland to have a look at the bill and read from the bill. If you could come back to the Leave of the Bill, that would be greatly appreciated. I will sit you down if we continue on a path of not speaking with the bill. Thank you.
Further to the point of order, Mr Speaker, I'm aware that this is the electoral funding bill, but that has a very strong relationship to the capacity of everyone in our community to have a say when it comes to elections. And if we look at modern technology, things like Facebook, social media, anyone can get on there and say what they like when it comes to elections, and there is no transgression around caps or anything for those. But when it comes to unions, suddenly this government wants to paint them as the black-hearted organisations that they will limit their capacity to campaign, and that is incorrect. It's over half the money in that cap on electoral campaign expenditure is being reduced, and that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. We shouldn't be doing that. What are they going to put a same cap on the New South Wales Business Chamber? Yes. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Yes.
That's the point. Thank you for making that
Thank
point.
you.
Own goal. You've just made your point.
So no, but there's other organisations, and I don't see why you are letting.
Minister.
I can't believe, Mr Speaker, that this is what happens every time I come into this place. These members on this side... Sorry?
Just make your marks through the chair. Thank you.
I am, Mr Speaker. I'm speaking to you, and I'm outraged by the fact that these members are continuously trying to gag debate in this state, and they will not listen to people who are trying to tell them what they're doing is wrong, and it is an absolute disgrace. They want to talk about what they should be doing in terms of supporting democracy and transparency in elections. The introduction of caps on local government's a grudging concession that Labor was correct, and that meets a long-standing Labor demand that they have not done. And it would be interesting to see whether the previous complaints we've made about developer donations to the Conservatives would be caught up in the new definition. But we have to remember, Mr Temporary Speaker, that this government has no credibility when it comes to electoral transparency. We've got to remember the paper bags that were thrown around up in the Hunter repeatedly by members of the government, and what has happened there. 13 members have been before ICAC from that side of the House, and they come in here and preach to us about electoral integrity.
I think
It's a
the member
shame.
for
How
Maitland.
many are in jail?
Member for Upper